Okay, greetings everyone, this is First Antonio 753 with the next episode of Geopolitical Simulator 4 Power and Revolution, Restoring the Ottoman Empire. We are in June of 2020. Last episode I kind of screwed up the recording a little bit because I forgot to have my game capture on my OBS, so I didn't get the actual... I got audio, but I didn't get actual visual. It was just a blank map with nothing happening. So we lost about a month there, so we didn't really lose too much. I did go on sort of a rant about Turkey and some events that have been going on, so I'm going to try to do that again, maybe sound a little more coherent than I did in the previous, or in the recording that you didn't hear, but this past week in Syria, U.S. President Donald Trump has decided to withdraw U.S. troops from Syria. And these U.S. troops were embedded into Kurdish-held territory, and it impacts Turkey because it seemed to be a decision made in the interest of firming up an alliance with Turkey. President Trump has mentioned in the past that he does want to pull troops out of the Middle East and other areas as well. But it really seems like the decision was made based on a phone call between him and President Erdogan, or the ultimate decision was made. I think he possibly wanted to do this for a while. But the decision to pull troops out of Syria, about 2,000 American troops, is done because Erdogan has labeled American allies in this region as pretty much terrorists. They are part of the Kurdish nationalist movement, which sort of exists in three different areas. You have Kurds in southeastern Turkey, which are the ones that Erdogan has labeled as terrorists. You see right there, the game actually portrays them Kurdish Renaissance, which I think is they're either the PPK or the YPK. I forgot which one's which. But Erdogan has labeled them terrorists. The Turkish government has labeled them terrorists, and they claim that they have support from the group in Syria as well. There's also ethnic Kurds living in northern Iraq too as well. And for a while now, the Kurds have been fighting to try to gain the establishment of a Kurdish state in the Middle East here, and this has been against the interests of Turkey. They don't want a Kurdish state on their southern border, also due to the fact that it may lead to the loss of some territory in the southeastern Anatolia region here. The Kurds have been allies of the United States for a long time. They supported the United States invasion of Iraq in 2003, and they've been fighting in Syria, basically acting as our ground troops. So the decision to pull out from Syria kind of leaves the Kurds sort of up in the wind. They're kind of abandoned here by the United States, which from a diplomatic point of view isn't really the best decision because it could hurt our reliability with our allies. From a morality point of view, it's also not really good since they've been our allies and they've been sort of doing our bidding here and working against the fight against ISIS. However, from a geopolitical point of view, I do think ultimately it probably is actually in the best interest of the United States. Of course, this is sacrificing an ally, sacrificing a friend, but Turkey also is an ally. They are part of NATO. And while I think probably Trump could have gone about it in a much better way by talking to advisors and warning people, so to speak, talking to allies as well, sort of warning people about what the plan was. Ultimately, from a geopolitical point of view, I think this will probably benefit the United States. I've been reading a lot on geopolitics the past year or so, checking out certain YouTube channels like Stratfor and Caspian Report and other channels that do a lot of news reporting on geopolitics. There's also a really good website, Real Clear Politics, that has a world section where you can read a lot of articles about what's going on around the world and everything. So based on a lot of what I read and a lot of what geopolitical analysts say, And people that I'm referring to are people like George Friedman and Peter Zion, Robert Kaplan. These are all good names to check out their books. From what they say, really, when you analyze geopolitics, you sort of have to step back and look at the big picture and see what the ultimate national interests are for a country. And their argument is that, or most of their arguments are that individual leaders don't really have a lot of control per se on what their strategy should be, on what their national strategy should be. And ultimately, from a position of U.S. interests, the United States should really not be involved in the conflict. And they also talk a lot about Turkey and how Turkey is sort of a rising power in the Middle East. If you look at the history of the Middle East, Turkey traditionally is sort of a seat of power, particularly Istanbul here, but the Ottoman Empire controlled the Middle East, and I've talked about this before, but the Ottoman Empire controlled the Middle East since the 15th, 16th century, and the 16th and 17th century was sort of a golden age for the Ottoman Empire and for the Middle East. It actually was probably more advanced than Europe as far as science and culture and economics because of the trade routes with India. This is before the age of exploration, before the Europeans began to explore the Atlantic and find ways around the Middle East. But Turkey had, as the Ottoman Empire, had stabilized the Middle East, and from a geographic point of view, they may be in the best position to stabilize the Middle East. If you look at economics, the best bet is probably Turkey in the Middle East. They have, I think they are top 20 GDP. They're within the top 20 GDP in the world as far as nations. They have a very diverse, modernized economy, much different than Saudi Arabia, that is very dependent on resource exportation, like in the energy sector with oil. And while Saudi Arabia for the United States has been sort of the main ally, events recently have sort of made Saudi Arabia look pretty bad in the media politically. And I wouldn't be surprised if Turkey had something to do with that. I mean, again, you take a look at the grand scheme of things by looking at things from a geopolitical point of view. You step back and you look at what's going on. And a few months ago, when the Turkish government revealed that the Saudi Arabian government was behind the murder of Washington Post journalist Khashoggi, that to me seems like an attempt, and I've read about this a little bit, some people have the opinion that it was an attempt by Erdogan and Turkish government to sort of undercut the Saudi government and hurt them, on the stage of world opinion in a way to help the Turkish government move closer to the United States, possibly. The Turkish government and the United States have had some tension the past couple of years. 2016 coup attempt against Erdogan. Some claim that the United States was actually behind that. I don't know if that's ever been confirmed at all. But I know that currently one of the leaders of that coup is in the United States under political asylum, and the Turks have demanded his extradition. The Turkish government did arrest a pastor a Christian pastor who they claim was behind the coup or helped to support the coup. And this was another point of tension between the United States and Turkey, which led to some economic sanctions that were placed on Turkey that hurt their currency. I think that's been resolved. I know that the pastor has been returned. I don't know what the situation is with the sanctions, but I assume things are better with that, particularly because this move in Syria does seem to be a pivot towards Turkey. Like I said, ultimately they are a better bet than Saudi Arabia as far as the economy goes. And when you're looking at the Kurds, I've read somewhat about the Kurdish nationalist movement. From what I've read, it seems like there is a lot of fracturing within the movement, and there's, like I said, different groups that can't really agree on a centralized leadership. So even if they were to gain some territory and create a Kurdish government, it's not really clear who the leader of that, what the leadership of that government would look like. And ultimately, a Kurdish state here in northern Iraq, northern Syria, and southeastern Turkey would, ideally be a good buffer against the expansion of Iranian influence, which is, according to the Trump administration at least, part of American geopolitical goals in the Middle East to contain the spread of Iranian influence. Ideally, a Kurdish ally could do that. However, a Kurdish ally wouldn't be that strong economically. One, first, it's not strong politically because of the divisions within the movement, but two, also not strong economically because it would be a landlocked state and it wouldn't have access to the ocean. So a Turkish alliance would be, a Turkish ally would be much stronger economically and militarily and in a much better position to contain Iranian expansion of influence within the region. And naturally, Iran and Turkey are geopolitical rivals that would try to vie for power and influence in this region. Although recently it seems like Turkey has been sort of pivoting towards Iran and Russia with the Astana talks in the Black Sea region, where they have been trying to work out a situation for Syria, post-Syrian civil war, post-ISIS. Those talks were seen as, or some saw it as, almost the beginnings of a Moscow, Ankara, Tehran Entente alignment. And those talks, interestingly enough, excluded the United States. So Turkey, who is a part of NATO, an American ally, seemed to be slightly pivoting towards Russia and Iran, although ultimately, from a geographic or geopolitical point of view, Russia and Iran are geopolitical rivals in the region. And an agreement with them would allow Turkey's rivals to expand influence in the northern Middle East there, as well as Russians expanding their influence in the Black Sea, which they've been doing with the annexation of Crimea and recent events in the sea, in the Azov Sea. So while Turkey seemed to be pivoting to them, I think ultimately the United States is a better ally for Turkey in the region. One, much stronger economy than Russia and Iran, so trading with the United States would be much more beneficial. Two, stronger militaries, a strong military helps support the containment of geopolitical rivals in the region. And if you are going to contain Russia, from an American point of view, Turkey is critical towards containing Russia. One of the reasons why it was so important for NATO to include Turkey in the 1940s, 1950s. That was the beginning of the Monroe Doctrine, particularly because of the Marmara region right here, the Bosphorus. I think it's Bosphorus and Dardanelles Straits, or it might be the other way around. But this is Russian access to the seas. This is gives Russian war mortar ports access to Mediterranean Sea and to the oceans afterwards. Iran is looking to extend their influence into Iraq and Syria, which they've done in supporting Iraqi politicians in their parliament, and they have the large Shia population in the south. And in Syria, they've been actively fighting against ISIS and supporting the Assad regime with the help of the Russians, and they also have a strong alliance with Lebanon. That corridor right there gives Iranians access to the Mediterranean, which I believe one of their goals is to build a pipeline through southern Iraq, through Syria, and into Lebanon, which will give them access to the Mediterranean and access to sell oil to European countries that are still in the Iranian nuclear deal with them. And this sort of gives them a second option other than exporting through the Straits of Hormuz, which can easily be cut off by Americans or possibly even Gulf Coast countries. So to contain Russia and Iran, Turkey's intervention in Syria would be actually very beneficial to the United States. Even if the Turks moved in and took territory, a Turkish ally to the United States is actually much stronger than a Kurdish ally to the United States. And so this actually does make sense from a geopolitical point of view. I mean, it's kind of cold-hearted. It's stabbing your enemy in your back, or leaving your ally out to dry, stabbing your ally in the back. So, doesn't really look great, and I wish there was a better option. But ultimately, this does seem like a better strategy, and it looks like that the Turks, who I read recently have put military units along the Syrian border, are ready to probably move in and take out, if not just ISIS, but also probably take out a lot of Kurdish positions. So not really a good situation for the Kurds. And yeah, it probably would have been better if you had some sort of warning ahead of time that this was going to happen. However, Erdogan probably didn't want that, because that would have given the Kurds time to fortify their positions or possibly make a political agreement with Damascus. So, this pivot towards Turkey in the Middle East, it's a better bet than Saudi Arabia. It's a critical ally in containing Russia and Iranian expansion of their influence. And, it was a democracy, and we'll see if it retains or it continues to be a democracy under Erdogan, but they have historically been a very important ally to the United States. So it does make sense why President Trump did it. I wish it could have been done in a different manner, but it does seem like a pivot towards Turkey. Additionally, Turkey was planning on buying, I think, S-400 missiles from Russia, but I read that deal has been canceled, and now negotiations have reopened for the Turkish government to buy Patriot missiles from the United States. So we have an arms deal and a strong strategic ally in the Middle East, which ultimately looks better for the United States, does not look good for the Kurds, and that is a very unfortunate situation. So I went on that rant for a long time. Thank you for listening. I'm glad if anyone still is listening. Thank you for continuing to listen to me. Feel free to post comments down below. Again, I'm not saying that I support this strategy or that I don't support the strategy. I'm just saying, from looking at it from a geopolitical point of view, it does actually make sense when you look at a strong economic power, a strong military, a country in very good geographic position to contain perceived rivals in the region. It's a much better bet than a divided revolutionary force that is not as strong, and probably would not likely be strong if it was formed, and does complicate the situation. But again, very unfortunate that they kind of got sold out there. And that's that situation. So anyways, as far as the game goes, we are still playing as Turkey, and Turkey has a great economy going on right now, over $1 trillion economy. There's a 5% growth rate here, less than 4% unemployment, which is fantastic, and almost around 3% inflation. And 1 to 3% inflation is what the U.S. Federal Reserve actually targets. That's called creeping inflation, where they want a little bit of inflation for an expansionary policy, but they don't want it to get out of hand, because you don't want to end up in a hyperinflation situation like you have in Venezuela or in the Weimar Republic of Germany or Zimbabwe's throughout history. Although those situations are a little bit different, because that's more about paying back their debt. And monetary policy is not something I'm an expert on. I'm slightly familiar with it, but I'm nowhere near an expert on monetary policy, just so you know. Taking a look at taxation, here in the budget we have $51 billion surplus, paying down a debt of $130 billion. That actually looks like that's going to happen pretty soon, or in a year or two. So the economy looks good. I don't want to touch the economy at all. The other thing I did during the episode, two things I did during the episode that I didn't get recorded, or got recorded, but I screwed up the recording. One, I placed the pacifist union leader under surveillance, because I looked at him through the God and Spy. He's under surveillance right now. Look at all this stuff. Currently monitoring. Political tendency is socialist. Not interested in politics. Feeling regard towards the head of state is blind hatred. Not a very honest character. Influential figure of great repute. Not very influenceable personality. Not in great form at the moment. Development of the investigation, relatively simple, not another target. And here we go. I saw this in the God and Spy. Secret scandal is that there are real estate scams. He only has 49% popularity. I don't know how he's that influential. But it says that he is an influential figure with a great reputation here. So the next time these guys make some trouble for me, I might just have a meeting with them and, tell them that we can reveal these secrets. Either back off or reveal these secrets. Or I could reveal the secrets and ultimately hurt his reputation. And possibly reduce that number of sympathizers there. And that's more of the political game that's involved here. And if I was playing as a political party, I'd be doing a lot more of that stuff. I know some people have been interested in seeing a game as a political party or a terrorist or revolutionary group, depending on your point of view. One man's terrorist is another man's patriot. I forgot who said that. But that also applies to the Kurdish situation, because Turkey, for one example, they are labeling them as terrorists, where from American military point of view, they've been our allies and they've been the ones liberating Syria. So from ISIS. So you got to take your pick at what point of view you're going to choose. Anyways, so that's the political situation with the pacifist union. The rest of the political groups, I think, really like me. That's not a good way to look at it. I can go through key figures. I think if you go this way, associations. Something's wrong with my game. Alright. That's a quicker way to look at it. And most of these groups, who's that? The drivers. Well, we can build some roads. Handicap rights. I thought I maxed out my handicap health spending. Homosexuals. Hunting. Pacifist union is the big one that doesn't like me. Senior citizens really like me. Yeah. But, oh, yeah, and the other thing I did too. I've begun moving away from democracy and weakening the powers of Parliament. We're going to pass another law here to continue to weaken the powers of Parliament, which I think says that they won't be able to do any votes of no confidence against the government at all. In the previous episode, I think I had it set up, a law passed where the Parliament can do no more votes of no confidence against the head of state. But now this one says that there's no votes of confidence against the government. I don't know what the difference really is. They still pass laws, so the Parliament still has power. They're not nominal. Not a nominal consultatory body yet, but we're getting closer. Then we got pretty good support for it. 58%, 57% from my party, the Pioneering Muslim Party. 87% from the ultra-conservative coalition, and then only 51% against us with the Social Liberal Democrats, and only 52% against us with the Central Alternative Party. So not a strong opposition, not a strong opposition from the opposition parties. So that's interesting. And then ultimately the last thing I did internationally is I sent an envoy to New York, to the UN, to seek membership in the Security Council, permanent membership in the Security Council. And if we get that, then things are going to get real active. And I know a lot of people on the channel have been saying, get more aggressive and become the dictator. I'm trying to sort of wait to get that. If I can get the Security Council seat, permanent membership on the Security Council, then I can veto any resolution against me, which means I have free hand to basically do whatever I want. Invade Cyprus, Egypt, probably Syria as well, take out all these territories. Maybe even take northern Iraq. Some people want me to move into Europe and take on Greece. We're a ways off from doing that. That would be a NATO conflict. That might get us kicked out of NATO if we did that. But ultimately, that would be part of the objective, to take the parts of Europe that were under the control of the Ottoman Empire. That would also include North Africa as well. So, and moving even farther down into Saudi Arabia. So, those long-term goals are there. And with the 2019 add-on coming in, I believe, January, I'm probably going to get more aggressive, even if I don't get the Security Council seat, because with the 2019 add-on, when I've applied it in the past, I've lost my previously saved game. So I do want to kind of start a new series with that add-on. So I would start probably getting things going pretty soon. In the meantime, let's I only have like 5 more minutes left in this episode probably, but we're going to play out to see what happens. We could probably maybe push it through the entire month and get to the end of the quarter, and then maybe make some investments and everything. Here we go, the UN resolution. That does not look good. Let me check this out for a second here. Resolution was dead. A permanent member country of the Security Council vetoed. Excuse me. It looks like the United States vetoed it. Most of them abstained. Most countries abstained. Cyprus, of course, was against this. We're going to have to wait to get them out. But the United States, can we improve our relations with the United States in any way? I think a trade agreement might be good. Yeah, look at that. We don't really have great relations with them. Ronald Trump. What can I do to improve relations in the United States? Slow this down a little bit here. Aid. Is there any disasters? Yes, there's several disasters in the United States. $4 billion for Alaska. Wildfires. Yep. California. Here, let's send $4 billion in aid to the wildfires in California.
Our scientific cell infiltrated an important research center. According to the information theory, we are therefore potentially able to obtain industrial secrets that, according to a quick projection, would attain the properly astounding index of 4 on the ladder of Angstrom. That is to say, at least a major discovery. It is obvious that to objectify this virtuality, our agents...
Yeah, I agree. That took a while for them to say that. Industrial espionage in Russia. That would be pretty good. That would help us out pretty well. Saudi Arabian mole unprotected. What happened here? Stop it. Refuse. We don't want to get uncovered there. Alright, so try to improve relations with the United States. Maybe a trade agreement of some sort. Be pretty expensive to buy weapons from them. Although maybe we should, because that's really improved our relations with France. There we go. Here's the sit-in, and it's probably by the pacifist union.
Voted on, and the law has been passed.
Powers of Parliament have changed. Not interested in that. And yes, it is the pacifist union. Let's appear on television and see what will happen there. Maybe we can have an impact.
Your television appearance was watched attentively, as usual. Now, it seems the demonstrators are divided in their opinions. In any case, it made an impact.
Good.
Stay tuned.
So we don't really need to go after that leader just yet. Here we go. Let's have...
Sure. Dark and strong,
some
please.
coffee with Mr. Trump. I love your country.
Very kind.
Of course you like that.
This thought is very honorable. I will
America
inform our
is
tourism minister.
great. You've made it great. Oh, you know what I could do? Maybe better military alliance. So we want to definitely sell stuff probably. Aluminum. We need aluminum. Apples. Let's try to find something we could sell to the Americans. Banana. Beef. Bottled water. Cement. Cement could be good. Let's see what type of deal we get with cement. Oh, no. What happened? No, I went the wrong way. Crap. I was supposed to go the other way. This way is where we're supposed to go. That's a good deal. And let's get one more contract. I can't believe I did that. Can we buy something? Aircraft carrier? Sheesh. I doubt it. I can't believe I screwed that up. What do we have? Sugar beets? So do they. They have Dwight Schrute making his sugar beets. Okay, steel. Steel could be a good one. Let's make a steel deal. Steal the deal. What's steel? Sorry. Really bad. Really bad jokes there. Okay. Okay, that should improve the situation. Military base. I like a military base in give me another military base in nah, we don't need to. Hopefully that'll improve things. Let's see. They cancel that one deal. Which one was it? Is it not on the list yet? Any results? Yes, improved relations. That looks better. So now I think we should wait until Cyprus is rotated off the Security Council. And what the heck is this?
The march has been placed, as you can imagine, under high surveillance. I won't dwell on the
Children of the new
esoteric
Kali.
or cloudy demands that they have been reported to us. Just know that up until now, the situation has been under control.
I don't know what this is.
You've changed the deal on...
Colleges love us. Happiness declined.
Our scientific cell infiltrated an important research center. According to the information theory...
I'm going to cancel that because that's a U.S. ally. I don't want to disrupt things with the United States right now. So what I should do is wait until Cyprus is off the... Actually, I'll wait a month and then I'll try again if I have the United States in my corner. Let's see what happens if I get rid of that bad deal. Which one was it? This one? No, not this one. That one. Suppress contract. Yikes. What did that do? Looks like we're still doing good with relations with the United States. Get through a day here. Okay, I think we're good still. So, I didn't go through a lot of time in that episode, and sorry about the rant that was up to date, but I feel like that was topical and I hope appropriate for the channel. Of course, I'm sure I'll hear in the comments. End of the sit-in, good. We're not going to do that. We're done with that, and that is done as well. So, thank you for listening, and thanks for supporting the channel, staying subscribed, and thanks to all the Patreons and everyone, and for those of you who celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year to everyone, and even for those who don't celebrate, I wish everyone and their family good health and happiness in the upcoming year. Of course, I still have a week, and I'll probably be posting a lot more videos, but I just want to say, again, thanks to everyone around the world who watches the channel and supports the channel, and I hope you appreciate the content, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.